Welcome in, belly up, have a seat and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. This is episode 145, Week 17's 2-Point Conversation, and it is my great pleasure to welcome into the bar Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing tonight, Bernie?
I'm doing as good as a guy in a Hawaiian shirt and a Detroit ball cap. How about you?
Oh, it's hard to beat that. Not that good, I'll tell you that right now. All right, guys. All right, in this show, I want to let you know this is our final 2-Point Conversation of the 2024 season. We're going to get this out of the way now. I want to say thank you all so very much for stumbling upon this show. And for those who stuck around, even a bigger thank you. And sit back and we're going to enjoy our last conversation together, guys. So in this show, we will start off with some player news. Of course, we'll go through the studs and duds for Week 17. Some of these guys might have brought you a championship. Some of these guys might have made you cry in your bathtub alone. And we'll also settle into this week's 2-Point Conversation where we go through all of the Week 17 action up to this point. But before we do any of that, I want to make sure that everybody is here. Wingmen assemble! All right, guys, it is now time to get into some news. Starting off with Jalen Hurts was inactive for this weekend's games against the Dallas Cowboys.
Uh-oh.
Anthony Richardson was also inactive this week for the Colts, making way for Joe Flacco to try and get those Colts into the playoffs. We will see if that worked out or not. Also, Jerome Ford, a potential playoff fantasy darling, left the game early on Sunday with an ankle injury. He left early in the game in the first half. Isaac Guerrero is expected to return to the starting lineup for the Monday night matchup against the Lions. And his opposite side of the field there, David Montgomery, has already been ruled out for the Monday night game. You know, they have let's just stop here real quick because I want to talk about Montgomery here. I guess he's not getting surgery. I guess he's going to wait this out and see if he can maybe play. And he's not on the IR either. Or did he go on the IR? I don't remember. Montgomery. No, if he's ruled out, he can't be on the IR. So he hasn't been put on the IR. He's not getting surgery. They're just going to see how he feels week to week, and maybe he can get back for the playoffs.
Yeah, there's got to be something else going on there that we just don't know. Something else behind the scenes. So,
do you think Jalen Hurts is going to make it back next week for the Eagles, or are they going to rest because they clinched the playoff spot today? They clinched the division.
Yeah, he'll probably rest. I don't see them needing to. Tanner McKee was serviceable, so I think they'll be fine. Saquon might play so he can get the big numbers, get the record, or try really close. I think the coach will okay that, but it's a tough spot to be in. So,
and then we'll get into the game part. But going into today? Did you think the Colts were better off with Joe Flacco instead of Anthony Richardson, or was it kind of an even split here?
Based on the last few weeks' performance, I would say no. I would have thought, yeah, they could just go ahead and squeak by this. It is the Giants, but for some reason that Giants defense kind of gave them a fit. And I don't think they expected that fit. And Jonathan Taylor looked like he was running on two injured ankles halfway through the game.
Oh yeah, he had a great stat line.
He did, but it looked like he was just not. He lost power halfway through the game. Like he was hitting the holes, and it wasn't like the big early runs. You know, the scampers and the explosiveness that he had earlier. So I think he might be hurting.
All right, we've got a few more players to go through here as we have a shortened news here, as there's not much to keep track of after this week. Jalen Waddle wasn't active for the Dolphins against the Browns. Alvin Kamara wasn't active for the Saints, making way for Kendre Miller to get all the work. Unfortunately, He did not finish the game as he left early with a concussion, meaning Clyde's Edwards-Helaire. I was wondering who's number 23 for the Saints with that long name. It was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Got a lot of run in the second half for the Saints game. James Conner, this guy was so good all year, but he might be the death nail for some of our managers. He was active for Saturday night, played just a little bit and said, nope, I'm good, and sat the rest of the game, only getting less than a couple points. And Tajay Spears actually had one of his best games in terms of yards on the ground. Didn't get those touchdowns like the last 2 weeks, but he left the game early also with a concussion. What do you have on these guys here? Waddle out, our Saints backfield. James Conner, man, that was a bad way to go, as the news was saying he's going to play, and then he sat out pretty much right away with discomfort. And Tajay Spears had a golden opportunity, but couldn't finish the game.
Yeah, for the Dolphins, Washington and Smith kind of picked up the slack there. Tyreek Hill got his. Smith did have a touchdown, and Washington had a couple big plays, couple of things to keep the Dolphins' chains moving, but Smith was the touchdown carrier for that one, so they didn't miss him. It probably was a closer game than it should have been, but the Dolphins looked okay considering that Tua was not in there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like you said, was the next man up over there. Kendra Miller, I think somebody else had a couple of, I can't think of who it was, had a couple of carries as well, but Rattler also had some rushes. Again, I'm not starting any of these guys. This is all NFL talk at this point. I think that they're just going to pack it up and just see what they have for next year in New Orleans. And then like Carter, he came in for Connor, he was okay. He had 13 carries for 70 yards, so that wasn't too bad. What's his name? Trey Benson. What's his availability?
He was inactive, I think, again
there. Yeah, going forward. And then what's really wrong with Arizona? And they played much better than they had been previously. Obviously, they lost, and it was a crappy game to watch, 13-9. So, but they didn't look depleted. And if it wasn't for Trey McBride, I guess that's why he doesn't get balls thrown to him in the red zone and the end zone, because it hits his helmet and he can't get his head turned around quick enough or something. Outside of that, I mean, they fought hard. And what was the last guy here? Tajay Spears. Yeah, that's unfortunate. He did have a really good stat line, though, 20 carries for 95 yards. I didn't see the injury. Did you see what happened?
I didn't. I was kind of watching, and all of a sudden, the other backs were in, but I thought maybe because they were down 2 scores late, I thought that maybe he just was not in their he's usually in their comeback mode because he's a pass catcher. I did see him on the field a couple times. I saw him take a couple big hits, but nothing that, I don't know. I didn't see when he left the game. I just noticed that his stats stayed the same for a long time, and then I saw later that he left the game with a concussion. So I'm assuming those two went hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, the only positives to take out of that was he was the lead back and he could handle the full workload. So I think that's a good thing for him going forward for his future. But yeah, he left in the third quarter, and they really didn't need to run the ball after that because they were struggling all around.
So I want to get into James Conner just a little bit before we leave the news here. So he was questionable all week. We saw he had that the injury didn't look bad last week. It was a hyperextension, but it wasn't even like an overt one where you could see it. He just kind of planted with a stiff leg, I guess, last week. And then he didn't play, even though he was on the sideline the whole time. So it was like he went to the locker room or anything. And then all week he was questionable. And then you see the reports he's going to play or is expected to play. And then even that, the news, even more in depth, was like he's expected to get the normal workload.
Yep.
I'm like, all right, so no begrudging any manager who put him in there based on those news reports. What else are you going to do? You follow what you can follow. Right. And then he's active, in that on the last minute news there. That's kind of, you're like, all right, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. He's in the game. He's going to be in the game, and they say he's going to get his normal workload. But we talked about it in our last one. What does James Conner have to play for? Right? He's got his contract for the next 2 years. He's an older running back. He's already hit milestones that he's already hit, except for one. And do you remember what that milestone was? That he hasn't hit yet? Do you remember what I mentioned?
No, I don't.
It was playing in every game.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So I
Because he
think
hasn't had
this
a
was a way to
season.
get
Yeah,
him
yeah.
on that track for the only milestone that he could accomplish this year that he's never accomplished before. And that's a dirty way. If you're going to do it, let people know. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, he's gotten the most yards he's ever had. He's already broken 1,000 yards.
Well, it wasn't his ankle, though. It was his knee, wasn't it?
His knee is what he had coming into the game.
Oh, the knee was what he had coming into the game.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Trey Benson had the ankle issue.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
He only got a couple carries. I think if he would have felt if he would have felt good, he maybe would have stayed. And he's like, I don't feel great.
No, I think he was sitting on the sideline. I watched some of that game.
He was on the side the whole time, looking normal
with his helmet on. They were working his leg, like he was ready to come back in. Like the game was pretty much over, and he still had his helmet on. So I don't know. He doesn't seem like that kind of person, but
no, not him necessarily. But the coach is saying you're not going in. Yeah. We already checked that box. He might have trained all week expecting for the workload, and they're like, take it off.
Gotcha. But I don't know. What's the reasoning for not ruling him out then? Like, even if you just gave him the start, just give him the start, and why didn't you just rule him out after he came out? Why prolong this? Why make it, he might come back, he might not come back kind of thing?
Yeah, that's medical criteria that you probably can't be fraudulent with that. I guess if he's healthy enough to maybe come in, you got to say so. You can't say we're sitting him. Ruling out is like a medical term, not a coach's decision term.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, let's get into some studs and duds for week 17.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Wingman Fantasy Football, studs and duds.
All right, Bernie, why don't you start us off with some of the players that helped managers advance in the playoffs, if not win their championships?
All right, let me see what we got here. All right, we're going to start at the top of this list with the MVP of the league. Not Jared Goff. Jared Goff is also the MVP. They're going to be co-MVPs of the league here. Lamar Lightning Jackson here, 29.42 fantasy points, 168 passing yards, 87 rushing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. And then it's like Lamar's looking in the mirror and he sees the next guy on the list, his direct reflection, Sam Steele Darnold, 7.08 points. You can't laugh, man. You're going to mess me up.
Sorry.
No, you're good. 27.08 points for Sam. 377 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. And this guy, he's like, hey guys, don't forget about me. I'm still the reigning champ here. Patrick Magic Mahomes, 26 fantasy points, 320 passing yards, 12 rushing touchdowns, and 3 passing touchdowns. And the new guy on the block coming in, he's like, hey, remember me? I got TV commercials. Justin Howitzer Herbert. There we go. 24.44 fantasy points, 281 passing yards, 12 rushing yards, and 3 passing touchdowns.
All right, this guy, I had him in the dud list, and as the game was going on, he got some stats in not garbage time, but in salt away time. Tyler Snoop Huntley ended up with 24.2 points. He had 225 passing yards. I didn't see many of them. I saw most of his rushing yards, 52 rushing yards, and he threw that 1 passing touchdown to seal the game to Jonnu Smith late in the fourth quarter. Derrick Henry starting off the week on Christmas Day with 23.5 points. He had 165 total yards with 2 receptions, and he got in the end zone once. We mentioned this guy as a sneaky emergency wide receiver start if you were in peril. Michael Pittman Jr. at 21.4 points at 109 yards on 9 receptions, and he got in the end zone. And his receiver mate, I thought it might be Josh Downs, but in fact, it was Alec Pierce at 21.2 points. He got 122 receiving yards, 6 receptions, and he had an awesome touchdown snagging the ball over the head of a defender.
All right, next up on this list, Bucky the Bolt Irving, 21 fantasy points on 190 total yards and 4 receptions. Then we have Jalen Smooth McMillan, 20.5 fantasy points, 60 total yards, 5 receptions, but he got 2 touchdowns. This guy's on fire. Brian The Beast Thomas Jr., 20.4 fantasy points, 109 total yards, 7 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And Xavier Velocity Worthy, 89 total yards, 8 receptions, and 1 touchdown.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
All right, keeping it with those Kansas City Chiefs, Travis Kelce. He's back, boys and girls. He had 18.4 points with 84 yards on 8 receptions, and he got in the end zone to break, was it the Chiefs' all-time record or some record in terms of touchdowns? Saquon Barkley had a very slow start to the day. I wasn't sure if they were resting him, and then he took off in the middle of the game, getting 17.9 points without a score here. He had 169 total yards and he got 2 receptions. And Puka Nacua had 17.9 points as well, and he too was kept out of the end zone, but he had 129 receiving yards on 10 receptions. And in garbage time with not Aaron Rodgers, but with Tyrod Taylor, Tyler Conklin had 17.7 points. He got there with 57 receiving yards on 8 catches. He got in the end zone once for a touchdown and once for a 2-point conversion.
All right, and I'm not going for the easy one on this one. I'm going Cam the Clutch Dicker. 17 points, 4 field goals, and 4-point afters. And the Seattle Surge defense, 7 sacks, 1 interception, no touchdowns allowed, and under 200 yards, giving them 16 fantasy points. And last on this list is going to be Daniel Diamond Carlson. 4 field goals, 1 point after, and 1 50-yard plus field goal. 15 fantasy points.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Seattle was the highest scoring defense, and it was a streaming defense in our championship game. This game, I'm not sure what the final outcome is going to be, as there's still some players outstanding, but that defense might be the difference maker, as he was picked up hours before that Thursday night game. I don't know how this guy does it, but he is a streaming defense savant. All right, guys, we have to balance out the good with the bad, and unfortunately, the bad was a longer list this week. Why don't you start us off with some of our duds for Week 17?
All right, who do we have at the top of this? Oh, no. Drake in Doubt May, 11.88 fantasy points. Then Cooper Crashing Rush, 10.08 fantasy points. And this guy shouldn't be on the list, but he is. Matthew Mishap Stafford, 9.16 points. And this guy definitely should be on the list, but maybe not next year. Caleb Chaos Williams, 8.58 fantasy points.
So I don't know the exact stat, but for Matthew Stafford, they have 3 straight wins in all 3 games. There's a threshold he hasn't met. I think it's under 200 passing yards. Mm-hmm. Never in his career has he won 2 games in a row with throwing for such little yards, and he's done it 3 times in a row this year. As that young defense, man, they are coming along. They are impressive. They just had to get some reps under their belt there, and they're going to be a really good defense for next year. They're one of my early targets for fantasy defenses to draft next year.
There you go.
All right, let's some other duds here. Geno Smith in the worst game of the week by far. Geno Smith only had 8.3 points. This quarterback let a lot of people down. CJ Stroud at 8.1 points. A sophomore slump indeed is now over. Dorian Thompson-Robinson at 7.8 points. And Hollywood Brown, wasn't sure if I should put him on here or not, but he was in a starting lineup in our fantasy league, so I put him on here at 6.6 points.
All right. Was it George Pickens? Oh. Yep. George Pickens didn't pick up any fantasy points except for 6.5. What's going on there, George? And then we've got Brees. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me start this over again. I do have it here. George Grumpy Pickens, 6.5 fantasy points. Then we go to Brees, put on the brakes Hall, 5.8 fantasy points. DK Dropsy Metcalf, 5.7 fantasy points. And Keenan Allen, 5 fantasy points.
All right, moving along. We have some big names on this section here, guys. Joe Mixon at only 4.9 points. He was so good to start the year, and he has been getting some pretty bad scores lately with some tough matchups. Devon, the man, Achane, couldn't get anything going on the ground. Only 4.8 points. Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's been a revelation the last month, came crashing down to earth with 4.7 points. and Aaron Rodgers going for his 500th touchdown pass. Just needed one, couldn't do it at 4.48 points. I've never been so pleased to see a mopey face on the sideline all day today. That was so fun.
If they didn't put Tyrod, it was a Tyrod that came in.
Yeah.
If they didn't put him in, then they would have gotten shut out, dude.
Yep.
All right. Zay 0 Flowers, 4.1 points. Khalil Knox Shakir, 4 points. Rashad Reluctant White, 3.9 points. And Tyler Tumble Lockett, 3.5 points. I don't think anybody's starting these guys. So
he was actually in a starting lineup for a consolation game.
What in the world? Consolation.
Fair enough.
Damn consolation bracket putting in these players.
That's why he's actually been on this dud list like every week for the last 4 weeks. You know who else has been on the dud list the last 3 weeks in a row? Cooper Kupp at only 3.4 points. Now we have some guys who left the game early. Not sure how they would have done otherwise, but Kendra Miller, who left the game early with a concussion, only got 2.4 points. And Jerome Ford, who left the game early with an ankle injury, only had 2.2 points. And Rome Adudze was in that dud of a game on Thursday night. He only had 2 points even.
Oh, and then Isaiah Ice Pacheco, 1.8 points. James Gerard Connor, that's actually his real middle name. No, it's not. 1.8 points. DeAndre Declining Hopkins, 1.7 points. And Ramondre Rumble to Fumble Stevenson, 1.1 point.
This guy luckily he wasn't in a starting lineup, but people to put him in there are going to be super disappointed. Jaden Reed at only 1.1 points. And this guy's not a big-time player, but he was potentially going to be a streaming darling for those leagues who require tight ends, Bernie. That's why we don't do it. Bretton Strange got 0 points. If we had tight ends required, he would have been in someone's lineup today. No doubt about it. All right, guys. It is now time. All right. Our stud list was a little short because we had a pretty solid mecha stud list. So let's take a look at our mecha studs.
Mega Studs.
All right, guys. This guy is our highest scoring player of the week in the lineup for a championship contending roster. Joe Burrow. 36.98 points on 412 passing yards, 25 rushing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing TD. Second on this list is also on the Bengals. T. Higgins got all of that in terms of the touchdowns, 36.6 points for Mr. Higgins. He had 131 receiving yards on 11 receptions, and he got in the end zone all 3 times that Joe Burrow threw it. Baker Mayfield, big-time game on a big-time score for the Bucs, had 34.56 points, 359 passing yards, and 5 passing touchdowns. And this guy, Drew Lock, 34.36 points on 309 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and he rumbled his way into the end zone for a rushing touchdown.
Oh, man. Drew Lock looked like an amazing football player today. All right. Malik.
Won't you be my neighbor?
Yes, I like that. 32.6 fantasy points for Mr. Neighbors. Devonta Silk Smith, 27 fantasy points. Jonathan Jet Taylor, 26.6 fantasy points. And Marvin Meteor Mims, 26.3 fantasy points. And JT looked good.
All these guys got in the end zone twice, and they all broke 100 yards at least. Our last guys on this Mecha Stud list. Oh, the old man can still do it. Oh, this is a list of old men and young dudes. We've got Mike Evans at 25.7 points, 97 receiving yards on 8 catches, and he got in the end zone twice in just manhandling fashion. Just grabbed the guy by the throat and said, pass the ball the other hand. It was pretty impressive. Adam Thielen might be a championship saver at 25.5 points on 110 receiving yards, 5 catches, and he got in the end zone twice. And a little lad McConkey on Saturday had a great day at 25.4 points on 94 receiving yards, 8 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. Ooh, and Trey McBride.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Without James Conner in for most of the game, he was the offense. 123 receiving yards on 12 catches, and he got in the end zone for the first time as a receiver. But he could have caught a couple more, as the doink off the face mask is what ended the comeback attempt here for the Cardinals. Not that they were playing for anything other than, spoiler, fumble, recovered by the offense. All right, so what do you have on these guys here? The Bengals in an epic overtime win with some huge scores. Baker Mayfield's awesome. Pair of Giants make the Mecca stud list. What's going on here?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I totally did not.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I was flowing off of the dud list, and there's nothing there to do. So Baker Mayfield should be in the MVP conversation. That first and foremost. Joe Burrow, he said, T. Higgins, you know what? Your hamstring is going to be okay because I'm going to get you these 3 touchdowns. That was really awesome to see, actually. I watched most of that game, and that was pretty cool. And then just to call it out, Malik Neighbors, 171 yards. So that's big time right there from Malik Neighbors, coming from Drew Lock. So I like to see it, man. I think all of these players on here. There's a future Hall of Famer on here in Mike Evans. There's some rookies on here with McConkey, and McConkey wasn't even a first round wide receiver. This wide receiver group that has come out, these rookie wide receivers have been outstanding this year. So I think they're going to be an early wide receiver run for next year's draft for sure. So
this is not to trash Neighbors at all. When we get more to the 2-point conversation, remind me, I want to bring him up a little bit because I won't say his stats are deceiving, but it came due to the defense they're playing today. They let him run wild for no reason, kind of thing. So we'll save a little bit for later. I mean, he did awesome. He was. I didn't realize Neighbors was that fast because all year long he's been doing kind of more quick cuts to catch the ball, but then getting tackled or being on the side. He's on the sideline a lot, so he kind of catches the ball and steps out of bounds.
Right.
Or he's either in the end zone or on the sideline. Today he was running after the catch, and the Colts just let him. But he was also very fast when he did it. So he was talented, but I think the Colts, I don't know what they did. They laid down today on defense.
Yeah,
all right, guys.
They're definitely out of character.
Yeah. All right, guys. It is now time to get into this week's 2-point conversation.
Is Jack Del Rio going to go for 2 here,
He's
Link?
going for 2.
The Raiders will go for 2 and the probable victory with 47 seconds left.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Wingman Fantasy Football's 2-point conversation.
And it's good! Oh my goodness!
All right, so the theme for this week's 2-point conversation, or at least this week in the NFL, is NFL players making their case for the NFL MVP. Honestly, this is the most open I've ever remember it being. There's like 5 quarterbacks who could lay some claim to the MVP race, and that's not including Saquon Barkley. And the in the hunt teams have gotten withered down by at least half, as several teams were eliminated from the playoffs this week. And the teams that we thought were tanking for that first overall pick all decided to win this week. I don't know what they're doing. So with that being said, Bernie, why don't you start us off with this week's 2-point conversation?
All right. So start off, we're going to go back to Christmas Day, Wednesday shows. Yeah, I like that. All right. So here we go. Christmas Day. First game, reading down the chimney. Chiefs stuff Steelers stockings with coal. 29-10. In a Christmas Day special, Santa Reed and his Merry Mahomes delivered quite the present to the KC fans, while the Steelers found nothing but coal in their playoff hopes.
All right. So you're really working this today, Bernie. I see that. I like bringing it. Okay. Yeah. I'm a little embarrassed to say, as this game was, I don't know the exact score. It was like 13-9 maybe, or it was about that score. The Chiefs were up, but they were up between 4 and 8 points, give or take. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I was like, the Steelers just stopped turning the ball over. I think they're going to take this one. Soon after that, it was like a 25-0 route. I don't know why I had that thought in my head at all. The Steelers, I thought, were playing well in that first quarter and a half, if not even up to halftime, except they were missing out on points. I'm like, how do they have so many yards? without scores. And then I was alerted to the fact they had some turnovers. Like, if they can take care of the ball, they're going to work this. And it didn't happen in the second half. They got dominated in the second half. Patrick Mahomes is spreading the ball around. Xavier Worthy's been a big time part of this offense this last 3 weeks, as DeAndre Hopkins has been fading. I don't blame Hopkins. He was kind of thrust into there when they had all their injuries, and now that guys are coming back, he's just an ancillary piece, not a main focus. As you've got Hollywood Brown getting targets. I'm trying to think who else. Juju Smith-Schuster's getting a couple. Xavier Worthy is the one getting most of the points here, and they finally got Travis Kelce back into the back going here. But their running game, although Hunt's doing okay, but Pacheco has not been anything since he's come back from that injury.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. With Hollywood Brown, I think is probably the biggest key to this receiving game lighting up a little bit here, because he is just another impactful big play receiver that kind of helps Worthy on the other side, helps Kelce in the middle. So I think that is a huge deal. And Patrick Mahomes, man, 320 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. That's a big game for the Chiefs. So Chris Jones was actually out the second half of this game with a calf injury. So I don't know exactly when he went out, but for the defense to play this good against the Steelers and Patrick Mahomes to start coming alive with the passing game, if they're peaking at this, like if they're getting on the rails now, the rest of the league is in trouble.
Yeah. Right. He seemed to be okay from that ankle injury. He played well even the last game. Mm-hmm. So they've already clinched up the number 1 seed, even with last week's. Or was it this week's win that gave it to him? Or I thought it was last week's win that gave it to him. So they don't need to play other than to keep themselves fresh. They're going to get at least 1 week off, and they're probably going to take a lot of their players getting this week off. So they're going to get most of their big-time players, if not their older players, off for 2 weeks heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, and then Patrick Mahomes, he's 4-0 against the Steelers with 17 touchdowns and 1 interception.
Oh, wow.
He distributed it to 8 different receivers in this game. And then one other key note here for Travis, he caught his 77th career touchdown, breaking Tony Gonzalez's franchise record.
It was a franchise record, not an NFL record for tight ends?
Correct. Just Tony's franchise record.
And was that a franchise tight end record, or just the franchise record just happened to be a tight end who had the most touchdowns, right, for that team?
Yeah, I don't have a distinction either way here.
I'm gonna assume it's reception tight ends for that franchise, regardless of position. They just both happen to be tight ends.
Exactly. All
right, we can move along. Unless you got something else, we can move along. We have a lot of games to get through.
Yep, we're good. The only other thing, Isaiah Pacheco rib injury in the second half. And the Steelers, Cam Hayward, he briefly left the fourth quarter, but he did return.
I'm not positive. I think Chris Jones was inactive because the first time I noticed watching the game, he was in sweats on the sideline. I don't know what point of the game that was, so I think he was inactive, but I'm not positive.
Okay. All right. Next game, a record-breaking rush hour. Ravens soar past Texans 31-2. Jackson flew past Vic's record, while the Texans offense got stuck in neutral, making NFL history with a score that's rarer than the Purple Cow.
The Texans offense didn't do anything. Their only points, we mentioned it because this was happened before our last show here. Mm-hmm. The only points came early. I think it was 7-2, if I'm not mistaken. They got their safety early in the game.
It was early.
So it was, they were within a score for whatever period of time it was. And then Derrick Henry was just getting chunk run after chunk run after chunk run. And I think Mark Andrews scored a touchdown again. I think it's like his 4th or 5th straight game with a touchdown. Isaiah Likely got in the end zone. He is just spreading the ball around. Lamar Jackson, they're playing perfect. They're letting Derrick Henry move the chains. And then Lamar Jackson's just good. He can just pick whoever he wants to go to get that final touchdown, because you have to respect him as a runner. And then if he runs up a little bit, that linebacker sucks up as a spy, as you like to say, and then he just drops it over their head right to the tight end who's right behind him.
Yep. And Isaiah Likely caught a 9-yard touchdown. I mean, it's one of those things that's pretty awesome. Okay, so just to get in a quick notes here, just because everybody's making records these days. Lamar Jackson, he surpasses Michael Vick's NFL career quarterback rushing record at 6,109 yards. So the new record is 6,110 yards, which is pretty awesome. considering how good Mike Vick was. And Mike Vick left early due to we don't want to talk about that. But
I did hear that stat. I don't have the numbers, but he did it like in like 60 less games if you don't want to count time.
Exactly. So if Mike was still doing his thing, this would have been a crazy record to but good on Lamar. Okay. Anything else on this game?
No, Texans are falling apart. They've clinched their playoff spot, but they are not looking good. That's the team people are trying to angle to meet in that first round, at least as of now.
Yeah. And then they're playing without Tank Dell, obviously, with that season ending knee injury. But Joe Mixon not lighting it up is really hurting them. Only 26 rushing yards in this game. So, all right, moving on. A barely exciting night. Seahawks win field goal fiesta against the Bears 6-3 in a game where offense was more optional than a winter coat in Chicago. The Seahawks flew just high enough to keep their playoff hopes from hibernating.
That game was awful in so many respects. It was a little, if I remember, it was a little rainy, but it doesn't seem that bad. But Caleb Williams looked out of sorts. He was like rushing the ball out of his hands to throw like screen passes to nowhere. And then when he wasn't doing that, he was getting sacked. He was just getting sacked every drive. He was getting at least a sack and a half against him. They had 7 sacks at Seattle here. And they held him down to under 200 yards for the entire game. And it wasn't like Seattle wasn't doing anything either. Charbonnet was the only one who got a decent game at 85 yards or so, but no one in the receiving game. DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, and Jigba and Geno Smith were all duds this week. So I don't know if it was the weather or just they're like, we don't have to do anything because they're not doing anything. And both teams it was like a gentleman's agreement. Hey, we're not going to score if you don't score. Cool. We'll see who has the least amount of points by the end of the game.
Yeah, and it was just a hard game to watch. Williams, he's pouting, but he's pouting for a good reason. Like when you see him on the sideline and he doesn't look like the leader of a team. He just looks so defeated, which obviously he is, but he can't be that. He's got to step it up, or somebody's got to tell him he's got to step it up. But he has suffered the 67th sack of the season, which is leading the NFL. It's pretty crazy to see such a good player just be so beaten up all the time like that. So hopefully they fix that for next year. Zach Charbonnet, though, like I said, 57 rushing yards. I thought last show I was like, I wouldn't put anything too crazy. And then Noah Fant led the receivers with 43 yards. So bad game. Moving on.
I'm hoping for everyone's sake, but Caleb Williams, I don't know why I can't remember David Carr, right? David Carr, the brother of Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Someone who gets, and like a couple other players like Mark Sanchez a little bit, or even Sam Darnold, who's finally getting out of it. Guys who get sacked so much so early that they start changing the way they play. I think that's why he was throwing these screen passes, trying to get him out of his hands so fast when his ability is his arm strength, getting it down the field, running around a little bit. And by him checking it down, afraid of the sacks that may come, it makes him not an effective player. So I hope this doesn't break him. And if you can be broken that easy, then that's another discussion kind of thing. But right. I hope getting sacked so much so early doesn't change how he's going to play in the future. Because some of these guys, you want to get them their reps, but it's not so much if you're ready as a rookie, it's if your team's ready to support a rookie.
Yeah, here, go out there, rook, and get beat up. That's how it feels like.
Right. It's like if you don't remember, like Ben Roethlisberger, for example, when he was a rookie, he was just a game manager for like 3 years before they let him pass the ball. You know what I mean? And then you're like, he can do it. Tom Brady for three or 4 years was just a game manager. And then these guys get more and more comfortable. They see things without the pressure, and then they can if they're good, they'll blossom, but they're not gun shy because they've got a support system in terms of running game, offensive line, what have you, coaching. Bears change their coaches all the time. Those two teams I mentioned, the Steelers and the Patriots, keep their coaches forever. At least they had it at that period of time.
Oh yeah, for sure. So they're definitely. Hopefully they figure something out though. That would be good for this kid. All right, here we go. Moving on. Charging into the playoffs, LA powers past the Pats 40-7, while Harbaugh and Horitz shared hugs. I can't even say his name. I see it written and I can't say it. The Patriots were left needing them after a shocking display that had New England fans thinking about next season's draft here.
Patriots looked horrendous. They could not move the ball at all. I don't know if you recall from our last show when I said, it was a little speculation, educated guess. I was like, with them ruling out Gus Edwards so early in the week with not like a season-ending type injury, and the fact that Dobbins had been designated to return, we suspected that he would be activated for this game. And the second part of that was at the beginning, the first half of the year, first quarter, their running game was the only thing that was affected. Herbert wasn't doing anything.
Right.
As people like McConkey, as they were shaking out the hierarchy of the receivers, would it be Palmer? Would it be Quentin Johnson? No, it was Lad McConkey and Stone Smart later in the year here. But when Dobbins went down, then Herbert started to, because he had to, was throwing the ball more. Not great, but they were starting to get more in a rhythm in that part of the game. And now granted, they had a great matchup in terms of an awful team, but I was like, I could see them having a big score this week as they might be able to get both halves of their offense commingling, as Herbert's best attribute right now is that play action passer. And they were able to get that done as Dobbins was just effective enough. Not a huge day, but he had I don't know what he finished with it, 85 yards and a touchdown, something like that.
Yep.
And that's just enough to keep your guys honest. They sprinkled in Haskins, I think, so Dobbins wasn't by himself for that power runner and like Gus Edwards stead. And just that balance. And when you have a guy with a huge arm on play action, getting some big passes down the field, they were able to put it on him, score a lot of points. That was kind of what I was suspecting would happen. A lot of that could be basically because who they played. But I think the weird first half, let's get this offense. Second half, let's get to this offense. Now it's time to put together. They're going to the playoffs now with this win. They needed this win to clinch a playoff spot. They did it. And now maybe they've got a balanced attack going into the postseason.
For sure. J.K. Dobbins had 76 rushing yards and a touchdown on 19 carries. And McConkey's breakout, 8 passes for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he surpassed 1,000 receiving yards for the season.
So we've got two, sorry, not to cut you off too much. So we have two, we're going to get ahead of ourselves a little bit. We have 2 Georgia rookies getting over 1,000 yards in their rookie campaign.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's good drafting right there. That's good scouting right there. All right. Moving on to Bengal burrowing their way to victory. Cincy stuns Denver 30-24 in overtime. In a game where the Broncos' playoff hopes hit the uprights harder than York's missed field goal, Burrow and Higgins kept the Bengals' postseason dreams alive. Go ahead and make your Cade York reference now. Get it out of your system.
No. It was a couple of games ago. I think it was his first game that he got picked up after McPherson got hurt. Yeah. They were playing the Cowboys. And like I said, I happened to listen on the radio when I was listening to that particular game. And the announcers were like, his I don't know if his wife or girlfriend is a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. So they were in Dallas with his girlfriend on the sideline for the other team. So I can't make fun of him anymore if he's got a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. He's doing something right, I guess.
Yeah, he's trying to take Aubrey's job, but he ain't getting that.
So we have a lot of Dolphin fans who watch this show, and if you're not one, I apologize. But the Dolphins needed a specific combination of things to happen. Chargers losing would have been a cherry on top, but against the Patriots, that was going to be a tough ask. But if there wasn't going to be the Chargers, then they needed the Broncos to lose. And this game was closer than you thought it would. Both teams are getting some big plays. Marvin Mims' touchdowns were beautiful. Bo Nix had a lot of nice passes in this game. Cortland Sutton had one of his great touchdowns where he's just bigger than everybody and kind of just dives. When he jumps, his hands are above everyone who's going after the ball. Oh yeah. But Burrow, they just stuck with it. Chase Brown left the game with an injury here. Jamar Chase was solid, but considering how many yards there were, but it was T. Higgins was the man, and I actually walked away. I didn't realize that the game went to overtime. I just assumed the Bengals were going to win this game, and I kind of stopped watching sometime in the early fourth quarter. And when I saw they won, and I saw the OT next to it, I was like, oh. And then I went back and I saw the guy missed a kick he made a kick at the buzzer, right, to move it up, to move to overtime, but then missed that kick with only 2 or 3 minutes left to win the game. Did Cade York? I don't know how the Bengals even got the ball back to score with that much time left in the game.
Well, the Bengals, they had Higgins with the game-winning TD in overtime. That was pretty awesome. But I think the defense for Cincinnati is really what is going to be the death of them, because most of these teams that they're going to start playing now, if they make it to the playoffs, are high-scoring teams, so they can run with them. So
Yeah.
You got to be able to put some stops into somebody, and not to take anything away from Bo Nix, but you're letting this rookie like keep them in the game, and he's been winning games for Denver. Don't get me wrong, but he's also making he's making enough mistakes to where your defense needs to capitalize on it, and they're just not doing it.
So with this one keeps the Bengals alive. It keeps the Dolphins. If the Broncos won, Dolphins were eliminated. So that kept the Dolphins alive, even though the Bengals are a much better team than the Dolphins right now. But the Dolphins have the tiebreaker over them, so they're not worried about what the Bengals do. The Dolphins now have to win out here and need a little help on somewhere else. But nonetheless, a big day in terms of the Dolphins. A lot of their things they needed to happen were happening on Saturday, so they went in to Sunday with some good news and some hope. So yeah, our in the hunt teams are starting to dwindle. Like the Chargers clinched. Denver's still owns their own destiny here, but now they're coming in off a loss with a big Week 18 game to try and make the playoffs.
Oh yeah. All right, here we go. The Rams horn into the division title. LA's defense weathers Cardinals' rule 13-9. When the offense went south, the Rams defense proved that there's no place like the Dome, keeping their NFC West hopes alive with a nail-biting victory.
Once again, Stafford passing game wise, I guess efficient, if you will, but not prolific. Kyron Williams gets the scoring done for them in terms of touchdowns. I think they only scored one touchdown. If I'm not mistaken.
He scored the game's only touchdown.
And with James Conner going out in terms of the Cardinals, Murray looked a lot better. He's still not. I still can't tell if he's good or not. Like I think he's kind of like a one of those, not an anticipatory thrower, one of those like I need to see the guy open before I throw it kind of thing. Right. He scrambles kind of wildly that guys are open on the left side of the field as he's running to the right. You'll see guys waving their hands, but they happen to I don't know if he needs to learn to scramble the way to try and help his receivers who are going to be open. It could just be coincidence, but it seems like every time he starts to run, he's missing guys that are open downfield. But he played a lot better without James Conner because I think he had to. He got a lot better stats. Trey McBride was a target monster and had one of his better games. Finally got in the end zone on a short touchdown reception. But in the end, the chance to come back at the end, a mistimed play, I guess, as a quick out to a Trey McBride went off of his face as he was right as he turned his helmet around. The ball was on his face mask, popped up in the air, and a great diving interception by the defensive back, Weatherspoon, I believe it was, for the Rams, and that sealed the game and clinched a playoff spot for the Rams.
Yeah, Witherspoon, his interception with 37 seconds left, that was the deciding thing right there. McBride, he was good. He was the chain mover. He was getting them the first downs like he's always been doing. They didn't have that killer punch, which I guess Connor is it, but I think the rookie, what's the rookie's name there? Harrison. He didn't quite get to the century mark. He was a little bit short of the century mark with passing. So he had enough passes. He had 96 receiving yards. He just didn't get in the end zone. He didn't put fear, I think, into that Rams defense. And that like you were saying earlier, those rookies, they're just coming alive. They're playing like Sean McVay. Like Sean McVay is a great coach, and they're going to be a dangerous team. The thing about them is that they won this game. It's almost like Kansas City. They won this game despite having a high-powered offensive showing.
Yep. I think in terms of the defensive backs for the Rams, they're very aggressive. You can beat them but they're also good at what they do. So it's like if you're throwing an out pattern and they have a beat on it, they're going to get it. But at the same time, you can get some double moves on these guys. Earlier in the year, we saw them getting beat a lot with big plays. But if you're not going to be creative or not going to trust your guys to make some longer, some better patterns, they're going to jump. They're going to jump on first reads and single moves, and they're going to jump on these balls. Kitchens is awesome, and Weatherspoon with the game-sealing interception.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Next up, we have the Bills pay the bills. Buffalo banks number 2 seed, while Jets crash land 40-14 in a game where Josh Allen proved the preseason doubters wrong. The Jets found new ways to make their playoff drought feel even longer. And like we talked about earlier, if they would have kept Aaron Rodgers in, this would have been a 0 instead of a 14, I believe.
I don't disagree with you there. Yeah, so that was a little slow scoring. I thought it was 13 zip at one time. I thought I saw 9, but I don't know how that makes sense. So maybe I'm missing a score here. There's a missed extra point or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, it was a little slow scoring at like field goals, and then it wasn't. Then everything went right for the Bills. They were scoring on defense. On special teams, scoring on passes to Keon Coleman made a great catch in the back of the end zone.
Oh, yeah.
Amari Cooper made a backwards diving catch there as well. And then Josh Allen started the scoring in terms of touchdowns with he didn't need the tush to be pushed, but it was a sneak where he had some help getting pushed him to the left side of the line. And once they scored that first rushing touchdown for Josh Allen, they just took off. Going into this game, there was a questionable tag on Devontae Adams, and he said, have you ever heard some of his quotes? He's not really worried about winning. He's worried about legacy. I'm not saying he's not a good player and he doesn't help winning, but
he's a great player. Yeah.
At this point of his career, he's like, I want to get this. He wants to be a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he wants to get the stats. Of course, they want to be in winning games, but that's kind of secondary. He said he wanted to play today, even though he was questionable. Now, I don't know how questionable he was, but he had that tag because Aaron Rodgers was one pass away from his 500th passing touchdown, and he wanted to be the one to get it. That was the whole thing. So Aaron Rodgers did not get that 500th passing touchdown. And Devontae Adams kind of limped off the field after Rodgers was already out of the game. And they kind of talked like, are you okay? I couldn't tell what Adams kind of conveyed to him. But he was getting walked off with trainers, not to the locker room, but to the sideline. And he's like, I played for this. Did Devontae Adams. They looked awful on offense. Their running game was bad. Their passing game was bad. Garrett Wilson is frustrated. He finally had a good day once Aaron Rodgers left. He was so happy. As they're resting the starters, Garrett Wilson's like, no, I want to stay with Tyrod. I want to play with somebody else. And he had his touchdown and a bunch of good catches once Taylor came in the game.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I got one take on the Jets, and then I'm going to move over to Buffalo and read off a couple of pretty awesome stats here. I saw when Devontae went down, and I saw what they were doing, and the first thought in my head was, oh, okay, here's his excuse why not to play the last game of the season, because it doesn't matter. I'm hurt, guys. Remember the last game at the end of the game when I got hurt? I'm hurt, so I can't play.
Oh, he's planting the seeds for the excuse, like premeditated?
Exactly.
Wow.
Just like how he got over here from wherever the heck he was.
Oh, yeah. He was hurt, missed 3 games with an injury, and then played the first game off 2 days rest.
Yeah, I got off the plane, and I feel real good now. So I think it just, it's like the boy who cried wolf. That's what it is. Okay, moving on from the Jets. Nobody wants to talk about them anyway. They suck. Okay, Bills offensive spread here. Amari Cooper, a 30-yard touchdown catch. Keon Coleman, 14-yard touchdown catch. Tyrell Shavers, 69-yard touchdown catch. James Cook, 4-yard touchdown run. Like they're just doing whatever they wanted to against this. And this is what needs to happen. This is what Indianapolis should have done against the Giants, and we'll get to that. But they should have done this to a bad team. This is what you do to bad teams. You just run right through them. So the Bills, Josh Allen, MVP case, I can get into all those, but I don't want to. There is one positive thing for the Jets. Garrett Wilson, 3rd straight 1,000-yard receiving season. And then this could have been a really good, a really good case for why the Jets should not keep Aaron Rodgers. But I have a feeling that they're going to. So
you're saying that Adams may miss next week, and I'm not saying he will or won't, but his stated reason for wanting to play today was to get that 500th touchdown, to be the one to get the 500th touchdown pass from Rodgers. Right. So I think if Rodgers plays next week, and I don't know if that's going to happen either, but if Rodgers plays, I think Adams still has that goal, unless he's just like, never mind, and kind of quits on a goal there. But they might try to do it in the first quarter and then sit down after that, get their stat and get out.
Yeah, no, everybody will say that, oh, the Tyrod's 2 touchdowns were garbage time touchdowns. But if you were watching that game, the Bills were not letting them have anything. They wanted to shut them out.
Yeah.
This is a divisional game. This is pride on that defense. Like this wasn't garbage time touchdowns. They worked hard for those last 2 touchdowns. So I think they should play the hot hand and let Tyrod take over next week.
So this game, like we mentioned, was slow in terms of score. So all those points that went from a 13-point game to a 40-point game all in the third quarter. That's all it took because Trubisky came in to start the fourth quarter, if not even with a little bit of time in the third. It was very early in the fourth or at the very end of the third. He had the whole fourth quarter, and Tyrod Taylor was a similar amount of time. They pretty much, once they saw Trubisky and they put Tyrod Taylor in. So both these guys played a whole quarter. And you got to see that mopey face for a long time on the sideline. And then even when they scored, it's hard to say, should you cheer? It's, should you cheer when you're down by 40 points and then you score a touchdown? Not cheer like taunt. We should still be happy for the guy who got the touchdown. Kind of, there's like that balance of like, hey, yeah, good job, man. All right, let's get back to work. Like, we're not going to celebrate, but we're going to celebrate you.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson caught that touchdown, and Rodgers just like rolled his eyes. I don't know exactly what he did, but he did not even like. No, not a smile. Again, they were getting the doors blown off, but like not even that normal kind of like, hey, my guy scored, even like a half fist pump. Very detached from the rest of his team once he was out of the game.
Yeah. So it was, good on them. Good job, Bills.
Let's hope they give up next week for the Dolphins. The Dolphins need that win.
Oh, the only other note I had in this game, and there's too many notes for this game, honestly, but your Rodgers not playing in warm weather is paying off.
Yep.
All right. Raiders arrive late, leave early. Vegas rolls past Saints despite travel troubles, 25-10. While their plane might have been delayed, the Raiders offense showed up right on time to play spoiler in the Big Easy.
So in this one, we had it was the Raiders scored late to kind of cap it off, but it was pretty close the whole game. The Raiders got up by, I don't know, it was either 5 or 7 points within a score. Was like 19-2. What was the final score of that one?
25-10 at halftime. It was 13-10 at halftime.
Yeah, so it was like 18-10 or 19-10 before they scored that touchdown. I don't know if they went for 2 or not. I don't remember, but so it was within that 8-point range for a lot of the fourth quarter. And then they scored that cap off touchdown to the Raiders. But Amir Abdullah had his best rushing game of his career. He's more of a pass catching guy. He had over 100 yards on the ground. Madison looked good the few carries I saw him play as well. I'm not sure what his stats were, but I mean they were switching in running backs. They were all doing what they wanted against the Saints. Rattler, you watched him earlier because you have Kamara on your team, so you were watching the Saints more than anyone should. But Rattler looked very erratic today. He looked like a rookie quarterback. He gets a scramble for a first down, and it's just like, yeah, kept the drive going, and then a sack or a fumble the next play, just all over the place. With their running backs being hurt, I mean, he's not throwing to anybody. He has no one on his team, but he didn't look particularly good. Aiden O'Connell had a lot of nice throws today, actually. What was the touch? It might have been the last touchdown or the one prior to late in the game to Trey Tucker in the left corner.
Yep.
He zipped that ball, did Aiden O'Connell. That ball, they had the camera angle maybe was low. The one I saw, the replay, it just looked like it looked awesome. It was a line drive missile that went like 38 yards down the field to the corner of the end zone. The guy was open when he threw it, but by the time the ball got there, just because it took Aiden O'Connell's not good enough to see the guy open right away. He had to see the guy, I'm open. But then he rifled it to him and got it there before the defense could finally close off that gap. So the Raiders did what they wanted to do today, and by the end of the game, they kind of dominated by the final score. I don't know if they're trying to win or not. They had the number 1 pick locked up 2 weeks ago, and now they won 2 games in a row.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what they're trying to do? I think a lot of these guys, they're playing for pride. They're playing to get their stuff on film, so they can get some sort of contract going forward. Stay on the team, all these things. But let's talk about the big key points here. Record-breaking performance by Mr. Brock Bowers. He set multiple rookie records, 108 receptions, surpassing Puka Nakua's 105. 1,144 receiving yards. That's breaking Mike Ditka's 1961 mark of 1067. Broke Darren Waller's franchise record of 107 catches. So he is definitely, like you said, Georgia rookie superstar. And hopefully we'll get the tight end position next year on our league, and then we'll be able to draft him high up on the list.
All right, let's move on to our next game.
All right, lock picks, perfect time to unlock Giants victory safe, 45-33. After 10 straight losses and a season-long home field disadvantage, the Giants finally found their MetLife insurance policy.
So I don't think so. On my early morning show yesterday, we had I had Flacco as an emergency quarterback, and he did okay. Could have done better. If you stopped at 3 quarters, he was doing great, and then they didn't do anything in the fourth quarter. This was not a problem with the offense or Joe Flacco, or even how good the defense was for the Giants, who they were okay by the end, getting some pressure and sacks. But Flacco was running out of pressure. He had a couple throws that were on the run, some scrambles. He looked pretty good. I don't know if he got worn out or just got hit, or just eventually the Colts just, not on purpose, but at the way it looked, they got manhandled. They got outplayed by the end. Their defense let down the Colts. The Colts needed to win to keep their playoff chances alive as a team, an NFL team. They lose, they were out. They win, they just need a little bit of help. Like everyone else, they would have been ahead of the Dolphins and the Bengals in terms of tiebreaker. They would have just need to win and then have the Broncos lose next week. And they were doing good in terms of points, but they were letting the Giants do. Tyron Tracy didn't end with a lot of yards, but in the first half, he was the one keeping it in the game in the first half.
Yep.
I mentioned before with Malik Neighbors, he's had a lot of good games, and he had that big spell in the middle where it wasn't so good. I haven't watched every snap of Neighbors, but from what I've seen, he gets open with a quick burst, but it's on the sideline. Like I mentioned before, he'll catch the ball and then kind of tiptoe out of the sideline just because that's where he is, or he'll get open in the back of the end zone, catch a touchdown, but they're not a lot of catch and runs. Today, he was catching the ball. Both those long touchdowns were short passes.
Yeah.
12 yards or less, just 12-yard ins, hitches, and then he just turned around. He's like, oh, these guys aren't going to tackle me, and would just run down the sideline, and the 3 guys would almost like teacups. They were just sitting in the middle of the field of the 3 defenders for the Colts, just spinning around, looking where they're supposed to go, but not going anywhere. And then, and again, Neighbors, I was impressed with his speed, but with those guys not trying to close down the space and get the tackle, mixed in with the speed of Neighbors, Neighbors got all of his yards on yards after catch and not after contact. And Drew Lock had no pressure on him today. Was able to look around, hit some guys in stride. Who do you have? Wan'Dale Robinson had a touchdown. Before he had all 3 receivers had a touchdown before Neighbors' second one. It was Neighbors, then Wan'Dale Robinson, then Darius Slayton. Maybe not in that order, but those 3 guys, he just hit all of his receivers. Tyron Tracy is moving the ball. They were very balanced to start with, and then they were just having fun that second half when they realized they weren't going to tackle us. Let's just throw it to our guys and let them run around after the catch.
Yeah, for sure. And it wasn't he wasn't sacked once. He had 4 touchdowns. I wish this box score gave me a passer rating, which doesn't really matter anyway. But Flacco, if you looked at just Flacco and Taylor's stats, you'd be like, oh, these guys won 330 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor, 125 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And you have Pittman and Pierce up there with over 100 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. The defense blew it, and I don't think the defense was bad. That's the other thing. And they knew they had to win this game to stay in for the playoffs. So
they weren't bad today, or they weren't bad coming into this game.
They're just not a bad defense.
Okay, that's
like they're not,
because they were bad today.
Yeah, they were bad today, but they're just not like, oh, we circled this game. Giants are gonna, put up these record numbers here, and win at home. Like I don't know. They didn't get out coached. Something like I don't know. They just failed. They just got beat.
It could have been injury, could have been fatigue, but like I said, this was a failure of the Colts defense, not the Colts offense.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to this
Sure.
game. All right, Eagles soar to division crown while Cowboys get their wings clipped 41-7. With Barkley running wild and Pickett living out his childhood dream until it got too rough. Philadelphia showed Dallas everything is bigger in the city of brotherly love.
So this game was a little slow going scoring-wise in terms of, or at least stats. I'm not sure what the first touchdown was for the Eagles, but they got up right away. Was it 7-7 or was it 14-7? Was that the closest it was? Because there was a touchdown.
It was 7-7.
Yeah, okay. I think Eagles scored first, and then the Cowboys scored. And then, if I'm not mistaken, it was a defensive pick six was the next touchdown for the Eagles. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of stats. I was looking. I'm like Barkley. I was looking down because we have our championship game has Barkley in the lineup there, and I'm like he's not. And I was curious how they're going to do with the backup quarterbacks and all that stuff. And he wasn't doing anything for the first quarter and a half. He only had like 2.5 points. I'm like, are they? Wasn't watching, just refreshing. I'm like, are they giving him a break, trying to rest him? They don't need to because now they're up 14-7 or whatever. And then he got his long runs in that middle of the game. I'm not sure if he got his yards after Pickett went out with that rib aggravation there or not, because it seems like Barkley can't get yards with Pickett. I'm not exactly sure when the changeover happened. But when the third string quarterback came in, then Barkley went ham. Didn't score a touchdown, but got a lot of long runs. They even sat him most of the fourth quarter. I'm like, it's that fine line because he's going for that record. He passed 2,000 yards today. He's only 100. I think he needed to average like 140 yards the last two games. Now he's ahead of that pace. He only needs 101 yards next week to break the all-time rushing record in a single season held by Eric Dickerson, of course. But I was curious, with all that time left, do you give him a couple more carries to try and just make it a little easier so he only has to play a quarter next week? Now, at this point, he's got to play a whole half, and even then, maybe even longer. 101 yards is not a guarantee. I mean, someone like that should be able to get it, but it's not a guarantee. But yeah, the third string quarterback came in, threw that touchdown to A.J. Brown, who quickly tossed the ball 18 rows deep, if not into the upper deck, as he was excited for the touchdown. Then he was told that's that quarterback's very first touchdown pass. He had to give some memorabilia to the end zone crowd to get that ball back from the crowd. But they got it for that quarterback to save his very first touchdown pass. But this was a shellacking for all facets of the game for the Eagles. The Cowboys were missing a lot of their big-time players with CeeDee Lamb out. Cooper Rush just couldn't do it against a strong defense. And the Eagles win the division, and they dominate.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. They dominated. And A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, they got both of their touchdowns from Tanner McKee. So I think that Tanner McKee should start the next game if Hurts does not, and Pickett should back up Tanner McKee. That's just what I think.
Do you know how early McGee came into the game? Was it first half or second half?
I don't have it.
That's fine.
But it was he played good. He looked good. He played good. I liked it. I liked it all around. So here's the thing about Barkley. Guess who the Eagles play? They host the Giants. And Jonathan Taylor just had a decent game against the Giants. So I think Barkley could get this in the first quarter and a half and be done.
You have to have one long run to start with. That's what we'll see.
Does.
I mean, he can definitely do it within a game. It's not too big of a number to get. It's just a big enough number not to like Puka last year needed like 2 catches and 18 yards. They targeted him the first 4 plays of the game and then he got out. You're going to have to give this guy at least 10 carries to even have a chance, and that's going to take time.
No, I think he could do it in less than 10 carries. But we'll see. We'll see.
All right.
Against the Giants now.
That'd be a poetic in one way or another.
Yes, exactly. All right, and moving on here. All right, Baker's dozen almost. Mayfield cooks up a perfect recipe against Panthers, 48-14. While Atlanta might hold the division tiebreaker, Tampa Bay's Baker showed he knows how to rise to the occasion in the must-win matchup.
This game looked like it was going to be a shootout. It was 21-14. Both teams were scoring on almost every drive to start with, and then the Panthers just stopped, and the Bucs did not. The first touchdown to Mike Evans, like I said before, he just boxed the guy out, and I don't know how that wasn't offensive interference. He just grabbed the guy's collar and was shaking him around and then grabbed the ball. They just let him go. We know Mike Evans does that, but that was one of the more egregious ones they let go. And both of his touchdowns were short. They were, I think, a 1-yard and a 2-yard touchdown reception. I was a little nervous because as it is nice to get Mike Evans touchdowns, he's trying to get those yards to get that 1,000-yard season, and those weren't long plays. But by the end, he had a couple of chunk plays, got to about 98 yards or so. I think he's less than 90 yards, or about 91 yards or so to go for him to get that 1,000 yards for the season. I forget the final number where it ended up at. But again, he needed a big pace. He had a huge game 3 weeks ago. Not a great game last week. It had a very solid game this week, so he's still on pace and under 100 yards to get that 1,000 yards for the 13th or 14th straight year, whatever it would be for him, and that would be a record or a tying record to Jerry Rice for most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. I think it'd be a record in terms of having every year of your career do it. I don't think Jerry Rice had 1,000 yards. I could be mistaken. There was also a strike in one of his first years of playing, so that might have been a part of it. But anyway, the Tampa Bay did whatever they want. Another emergency start. I did pretty good with my emergency starts this week, man. I said Jalen McMillan for your receiver, emergency start, had another 2-touchdown day. Did exactly how how I envisioned it, not that I could predict it. But his second touchdown, I said with Sterling Shepard out, he's going to get some of those more crossing patterns over the middle, which he usually doesn't get. He caught a 15-yard crossing pattern, saw that no one was around him, just turned up the field, ran right up the middle of the field. It wasn't a long pass. It was a medium pass, and with no defense around him, just ran up the field for a touchdown. Bucks had a great day. They needed this win, and now they're scoreboard watching the Falcons, who are in a tight game on Sunday night. So it's going to come down this last week for this NFC South here between the Bucks and the Falcons, but the Bucks did all they could do, and they dominated this game today.
Yeah, for sure. And Baker says, this is my masterclass. This is why I need to be in the conversation, not just all these other quarterbacks for MVP. 27 of 32, 359 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 4-0 against Carolina. He's just that good. So I think the biggest thing here was no Chuba Hubbard. The run game was just non-existent for Carolina compared to the Tampa Bay run game. And I think after that, like you said, after the initial back and forth, Tampa Bay is just like, these guys can't run. And then they knew exactly what to do on defense because their coach is a defensive-minded coach, and he is a decent coach. But Mike Evans, 85 more yards for Rice's record. Bucky Irving, he surpasses 1,000 yards for the season. So pretty good all around.
I was going to say one more thing. I forgot what it was. But Thielen caught those 2 touchdowns. There was something else towards the end of the game I wanted to mention. Oh, not towards the end. I had no idea that Hubbard was even banged up, and then all of a sudden you see he's on the IR. I did not see that coming at all.
No, did not see that coming. Exactly. So, but that was it. And, Bryce played good. Like you said, Adam Thielen played good. Just without that running game, it's just tough. It's tough to win in the NFL if you're not balanced.
Yep.
All right. A couple more here. What we got here? This is a really good game. Thomas runs past Moss while Titans run out of steam, 20-13, in a rain-soaked affair between two teams looking ahead at 2025. Brian Thomas Jr. made history while the Jaguars made it a sweep.
This game was also kind of low scoring, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think they scored the last couple touchdowns maybe to kind of put it away here. We had Mason Rudolph, like I said, he throws interceptions too. Didn't have 3 of them or whatever. He didn't get that garbage time touchdown. They tried to get that garbage time touchdown at the end, and I don't know what the receivers were doing for the Titans. They weren't fighting for that. They were ready to leave because he threw a couple passes down the middle to Westbrook Akine. They weren't great, but it seemed like if they could have fought for it, maybe caught that ball, caught a couple balls at the end, wouldn't have changed the outcome of the day. But now the Titans they might have the first pick. I don't know the tiebreakers now, but they were a couple of games ahead of both these guys. But with Jacksonville winning 2 games now, and now the Raiders or Jacksonville winning today, the Raiders winning twice, and the Giants winning. Now we're back to a 4-way tie for that first pick, and I'm not sure the tiebreakers are going to shake out.
Yeah, this was a crappy game. I mean, we're talking Mac Jones against Mason Rudolph. I mean,
right.
Are we tuning in for this game? I think the timing was just off with Rudolph and Chig. So I don't think anything the receivers kind of gave up or anything like that. I think the timing just wasn't there for that. But we could just say, yeah, it's great. Tyjae Spears, though, before he left, 95 yards and 20 carries.
He was doing awesome in terms of his stats. He actually had just as many stats, if not more, than his last 2 weeks where he was getting 20 points fantasy-wise. He just didn't get in the end zone. But he left the game early. He was poised to have a good fantasy day, and he still had a solid day. But without those touchdowns, it's not the big time production you're hoping for.
Yeah, and then Brian Thomas, he had a great day. He tied Randy Moss's rookie record, 8 games with 60-plus yards and a touchdown, 7 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown in this game, and he became the 5th Jaguar with 10-plus touchdown catches in a single season.
10 touchdowns as a rookie. Oh, my.
Yeah. So great job there. Okay, moving on.
Yep,
Let's go.
Yep.
2 more games and we're out of here. We're not out of here, but we're done. So Huntley for playoffs still on. Dolphins weather Browns in Cleveland 20-3. While Tua took the day off, I got questions about that. His backup showed Miami that their playoff hopes aren't all wet in this rainy affair.
All right, I'm going to take a little sidestep here. We'll come back to this game. So in our Sunday night game here, the Falcons are down by a touchdown with about 3 minutes to go. I didn't see the last clock. It's under 4 minutes. 4th and 11. Penix threw an 18 to 22-yard pass out to London, so they are approaching the red zone, if not in it, with 2.5 minutes or so left. But a 4th and 11 conversion by Penix to London to keep Atlanta's playoff control alive here. And so that's just a big-time play there. That would have ended their season if they didn't catch that play there. All right, back to the Dolphins, who are also alive in terms of the playoffs. This game was ugly and hard to watch. It was rainy on and off, some snow flurries mixed in. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is not good, although in garbage time at the end got it. Not only garbage time, but with the help of garbage time, Jerry Jeudy finished with a fine day, had his most catches of his career with 12 catches. Or no, was it 12 catches or 12 targets? Whatever he had the most receptions of his career in a single game today. Every time both teams messed up a lot. The Browns got into the red zone a couple times and then went for it and got stopped. If they would have kicked field goals early, it would have put a lot of pressure on the Dolphins, who did not really score till late, as Huntley was mostly scrambling to get random first downs. He looked like he was having fun, but he also he didn't know what he was doing. He was just kind of in the middle of the field doing random spins and jukes with no one around him. It was very awkward. But the Dolphins needed this win, and they got the win to keep their playoff chances alive.
Yeah, I got a couple things to say about this game. First off, Mike McDaniel, stop throwing the challenge flag. You're not good at it. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if somebody's telling you to do it, and if they are telling you to do it, fire that person. If it's you, stop. Tyler Huntley, the thing about Tyler Huntley that we're just not used to seeing is that he ran, and when he ran, he was trying to get the yards.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going head first here. I'm getting this touchdown. So we're just not used to seeing that. The timing, this team is all about timing. He did have some really good passes to Tyreek that got called back for penalties. So the offense just wasn't in full sync. So I think they're kind of lucky that they got this win against a bad team. Myles Garrett could have wrecked this whole offense on his own. He had 2 sacks today on his birthday. So he's the first player with 14 plus sacks in 4 straight seasons, which is pretty awesome. And then Jalen Ramsey showed up. Look at that. Crucial goal line pass breakup. Forgot he was on the team until he does this one thing, and then we're all like, oh yeah, he's great for one thing. I guess it's it is what it is though. So we'll see. Dolphins. It's not all in your.
Calais Campbell is dominating the line of scrimmage. He's ageless. He does so many things for the Dolphins that helps keep them alive.
Yeah. So, and then on the Brown side, it's just rough. You were right. 12 receptions for Jerry Jeudy, 18 targets. They just need a second receiver, I guess. I don't know. Because the next guy up had 8 targets. So I
saw Aikens getting a lot of work too, I guess. Was it
Jordan Aikens had 8 targets. Yeah. But against 18, I don't know. I don't know what to think. Let's move on from this game.
Well, I noticed that Mostert was getting a lot of the backfield snaps.
Yeah.
Not a lot of carries. I also noticed Huntley wasn't very good at even handing the ball off. He was kind of flicking, dropping the ball to their stomachs instead of giving it to him. There's a couple plays Mostert had to take 2 steps to make sure he had the ball in his hand before he made his cut, and then he would get tackled, and he looked over come on, dude, just give me the ball. It's a handoff. We're trying to run the clock out. You can't even give him Huntley's not good. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So they were lucky to get this win. They were lucky they played the Browns. They got the win. Let's get out and let's play for next week.
Exactly. So Dolphins, just quick playoff picture snap here. Improve to 8-8. Need a win versus the Jets next week. Require Broncos loss to Chiefs, and the Chiefs are likely resting their starters. And Tua's status is going to be uncertain due to his fake hip. All right.
Okay. All right.
Last game. Darnold's renaissance continues. Vikings edge Pack in North Thriller, 27-25. While the Pack tried to go late, Sam Darnold showed why Minnesota's quarterback carousel landed on the winning ticket.
This game was close in terms of score, but the Vikings got out to a decent lead. I think it was 20-7 or 20-10. I know it was 20-10 at one point, but I think it was 20-3 before that. They got out to a big lead, and it seemed like they were just kind of salting it away from the get-go, but they were still mixing in good big first downs. They got a huge first down at the end of the game that would as the Packers needed. They had 3 timeouts to start the drive, I guess. Would have needed trying to get a 3 and out. Mm-hmm. And it was, I guess, 3rd and 2, and Akers, right? Cam Akers made a great falling down catch. He had no business. That was a bad throw by Darnold on the screen pass. He just kind of dumped it out, and Akers made a huge catch that ended up securing the victory as they were able to kneel out at that point because the Packers got it within 2 points. Oh, Kyle Pitts game-tying touchdown on a 4th and goal from the 12-yard line. Oh my. So yeah, the Vikings show they're just as good as the Lions. Maybe they're dominating. Every time you kind of think they're just moving along, they're beating good teams and handling their business.
Oh yeah. I think it all starts with that head coach. He might be coach of the year. He's doing it with Sam Darnold. That's all I got to say about that. MVP here, coach.
Another MVP. Yeah, another MVP in the race.
There it is. So just Sam Darnold, he looked great. I mean, he's throwing touchdown passes to Naylor, Addison, and Akers. He's got. Okay, you tell me, how many touchdown passes does Sam Darnold have? I have it here, but how many do you think he has for the season? Just to throw out a number.
Yeah, no. There's still a game up. I'm going to conserve and say 34.
35 total touchdowns this season. 4th most in NFL history for first year with team.
Okay.
Behind only Stafford at 41, Brady at 40, and Manning at 37. He's definitely going to get 2 more touchdowns. So he's definitely passing Manning. He might be 3rd on this list. That's pretty amazing, honestly. First year on the team. So key offensive performances there. Naylor had a 31-yard touchdown catch. Josh Jacobs rushing touchdown. Emmanuel Wilson rushing touchdown. Malik Heath a late 3-yard touchdown reception. Like, they're doing it however which way they want. It was a good game. It was a close game. But the Packers, they dropped to 11-5. They're 0-5 against the NFC's top 3 teams. So they just can't beat the big boys in their own division.
Yeah, I've been thinking all year that Jordan Love has not looked particularly. He has some flurry sometimes, like a crazy, but as like a put it together for a whole game, he doesn't impress me. At least this year, and even last year, he had a very hot stretch of games. But as a whole, when they're in the lead and they can just let Josh Jacobs pound the ball, they couldn't do that in the second half today. They tried to do it for as long as they could, but the score just kept getting separated. Josh Jacobs is their offense this year. Obviously, for the last 6 or 7 weeks, he scores a touchdown every game. But in terms of, I think Jordan Love can make a play, but I don't trust him to make the play, kind of thing. Excuse me, I got sneezes coming. So again, Vikings are just dominating. Green Bay is going to be in the in the playoffs, I believe. I think they clinched a playoff spot. But nonetheless, the Vikings are the cream of the crop here.
That's it. All right. What do we have next on our agenda, Michael?
We've got nothing except to invite you guys and say thank you for joining us for all of our 2-point conversations. So I want to thank all you guys who found our little show. This is our first full year on YouTube, guys. And we want to extend an invitation for you guys. For Monday night, we are going to do our last show of the year, and it's going to be a live stream. We're going to see how this goes. We're going to do a live stream as, at least in our league, we're going to have our championship come down to the last game. Our managers are down by about 30 points or so. I don't have it in front of me, with 2 players left in Juwan Jennings and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So it's going to be close. Those guys can easily get in that range, but are not guaranteed it. So we're going to live stream to Monday night, do an abridged version of our rewind while we talk about our seasons. So come on and join us on the chat, guys. Join the stream, join the chat, join the fun. We're going to start approximately around 10 p.m. so we can get have a resolution to our game, and we're going to crown our champion live on the stream. So with that being said, do you have any thoughts on having a live stream to end the season tomorrow or later today?
No thoughts. I might have a computer in front of me because I can't read the screen to look at chat stuff. So you might see I might have like my iPad up like this.
Nope. Yep. That's what we're doing. We're hanging out. I mentioned last year it was on New Year's Eve, but our game was so close. We had a text chain going. It was kind of fun if you didn't have anything invested in it. So we're going to kind of replicate that, but we're going to do it together with a little bit of a video feed mixed in with our rewind. So instead of a text chain, let's do a chat chain here, and Bernie, and we'll just have a little fun hangout as we see who's going to be crowned the champion.
Oh yeah, and also there'll be less outdoor sun and beer like the last live stream we had, which we do during Oktoberfest, I believe. It's just a draft and just a lot of stuff going on before that live stream. So this one will be better than the last one.
Oh, yeah. No problem. We'll be good. All right, guys. With that being said, you can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music. And if you want to see our video feeds and our live stream on Monday night, go ahead and go to our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube. When you head over there, guys, please do me a favor. Hit that like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when our live stream starts and you know when our next season starts early in August. Thank you guys for another enjoyable fantasy football season. We're pleased to have met you guys and have you come out here. So with that being said, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
And I don't have a witty outro, so I'm just going to also say thank you very much for watching. Please leave us some comments let us know how we can get a little bit better for you. If you like us, if you don't like us, anything, just say something. It just helps. Just say something.
You sounded pretty thirsty. You sounded thirsty there, Bernie.
All I'm saying is if you don't say anything, we don't know how good we are. Because I tell Mike he's doing a great job all the time, and he tells me I'm doing a great job all the time, and he knows that he's not, and I know that I'm not. And it's
Not true.
Yeah. So
all right,
start it over again, Mike. I just want to say thanks. This has been fun. This will be fun going forward. But I want you to do your outro again, and you do the whole outro. Okay.
Okay. May your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty, and we will see you next time.